Hello, this is episode 5 of the Spirals of Inquiry training. This is the last of the episodes that we've produced. In this episode, we're going to be looking at implementing a spiral of inquiry, and also we'll be viewing the final part of our film, which looks at why a whole school approach is important. By now, we hope you have an understanding of the spiral of inquiry and have gained some experience of what it's like to engage in the process. Before you start with your own inquiries back in your schools, there are some important things we think that you'll need to consider, which are based upon the experiences and learning that's been ongoing in schools in Canada, New Zealand and Australia. Matt in his discussion with Laura and Ian earlier mentioned how in these particular education systems the spiral of inquiry has been used for some time, and it's much more embedded as a mechanism for bringing about change within those school systems. So there's some quite important lessons and some good resources that you can find on websites such as the New Zealand Ministry of Education, and a variety of resources on some of the various provinces in Canada. So what we would recommend then, first of all, is to start at the top. So it's really important that you gain the commitment of your school's leadership team to engage the whole school community in dedicating time to your project or to this process of change. Next, think about who will need to be involved in your initial working group. Do the members of your working group represent those who are going to be most affected by the issue undergoing the inquiry process? So are we going to really hear from the people who this means the most to? Are we going to make sure we've got the right voices to engage in our inquiry? Next, make time to meet at regular intervals throughout the school term. Try to make it so that this becomes a regular habit, that you're in order to meet and discuss where you are with your inquiry, and to review actions and look at what's been found out. Next step is to make sure that you're able to carry out inquiry activities between these meetings. So it's really important that the spiral isn't just something which goes on when you have your regular meetings, as mentioned in the previous step, but it is something that's an ongoing process. So it's about having that curiosity when you're walking down a corridor, when you notice something, when you overhear a conversation, or you pick up on things going on in the school community, or you listen into voices of various different members of your school community, so that you've got that ongoing curiosity. So be open to the process and just maintain that curiosity at all times. Speak to people you might not usually speak to. Don't be afraid to overturn every stone to get a really deep and meaningful understanding of what is happening within your school community. So look everywhere, ask questions, speak to people, and be aware of whose voices aren't you hearing as well. So all important factors to consider when you're starting off on your own spirals. So we thought about the things we need to do before we get started. Now let's talk about what we need to do to actually get started. So in order to get started with this, it's important to share the elements of well-being in your wider school community. So the resources which you would have seen on day one of your training, or the film, are a really good starting point for that, and we've made those available on Hub for you to be able to share. Some of you have told us that you're already doing this, and we heard in the live version of this training, we heard some really lovely examples of how that's already been done. So we really admire your enthusiasm there and appreciate the kind feedback that we've had on the resources. So keep your ears to the ground, and so keep that listening ear and listen to the most common issues in your school. Don't be afraid to listen to your gut feelings and relate this back to the elements of well-being, so you've got that ongoing reflection and sort of evaluation going on the whole time. So linking everything you hear and framing that within the context of the elements of well-being, of belonging, agency, efficacy, love and safety. And finally, create a context for conversations and feedback. So think about the spaces you have to consider, and you might need to think about how you get that together before you actually start a scan. So how are we going to actually have these conversations? How are we going to hear the voices? And how are we going to ensure that those are fed back through the kind of the mechanisms that we'll be establishing with our spiral? We feel that we're in a really privileged to be working with the schools in Newport to use this spiral of inquiry and to look at how we can support schools with developing their own practice around emotional wellbeing with the COVID recovery. So we have some time available to work with you over the next few months to engage in a consultation with you as you initiate your own inquiries. So it's an opportunity to have some thinking time to join with colleagues from schools and our team to explore common themes. So like I said in the previous slide, it's that ongoing sort of reflection and thinking about the elements of wellbeing and what we're seeing in our own school communities. So with that, we will be looking to think about how we might be able to target support. So we anticipate that through your experience of thinking about wellbeing within your own school community, ideas about specific interventions that may support your community will emerge. And what we're hoping for there is that we don't have these kind of bolt-on interventions, that they're actually targeted interventions which come from within your own school communities that that match the needs that we see that are arising through the spirals that we're conducting. So the whole school approach team can offer some time towards facilitating or commissioning this, and we hope to be announcing some consultation dates with you very soon. And we invite you to take part in that process as well. So this will only emerge through a spiral. So we hope that therefore that you'd be able to join us around with that, and we'd be able to join in around the taking action stage to support you in considering who can best meet these needs. So we may be fostering, we're looking to foster links with partner agencies across Newport. So that might be with our colleagues in the Educational Psychology Service. It could be the Gwent Attachment Service, or also community psychology as well. But also we might be looking at what sort of interventions we might be able to commission, providing they meet the needs of what's emerging from our spirals of inquiry. So we'll be looking about who would be best placed to deliver that in your school, and looking at what consulting with you around what the best interventions might be to support those needs which emerge through your own spirals of inquiry.
Wellbeing really is a golden thread that runs through everything in the school. It's a culture that you can feel. It's quite difficult to put your finger on why it's so special here, but it is. Everywhere you go, when you talk to staff, when you talk to children, when you walk around the classrooms, you can feel that throughout the school.
In this film, we've looked at the components of wellbeing that are critical for a whole school approach to wellbeing. But I suppose we can't move away from the centrality of the importance of relationships, which comes into all of the components that we looked at today. How if we want to get a whole school approach to wellbeing right, we need to begin by thinking about the relational values that we hold as a school community and how we can develop and enact those.
I feel that this is stable, it's consistent, and our motto at this school, be kind, be your best, and we very much take that on board, and it runs and is embedded throughout the school, because you know as an adult, if somebody smiles at you, just giving you that recognition that actually you are valued, you are worth somebody's expression of recognition is really important and can make a difference.
The whole school approach to emotional wellbeing is such an exciting project because it's actually been born out of the experiences of people within school communities. So the components of wellbeing that we've identified as being important to school contexts, love, agency, efficacy, belonging and safety, are themes that we drew from listening to the stories of children and young people within schools, of teachers, of education staff, and parents and carers. We know that there's a really good evidence base for why these things matter, but what we've not done before is hear from these school communities in this breadth that actually it's the little moments that are making the big differences. It's the little moment where someone notices you, where someone makes you feel valued, where someone really hears what you're telling them and holds it in mind for you, where you feel you're able to grow into your best possible self. But equally, where when you're struggling, you know that you'll be held, you know that there are adults around you, whether that's a colleague or a teacher or member of education staff, who is going to respond to that emotional need, who can hold you in that communication and think about routes for you moving forward. It's not just about creating contexts where everything is okay all of the time. It's about creating contexts where it's okay to not be okay.
This school is just incredible. The ethos and the values that we have are embedded throughout the whole school. There's a real love and supportive environment. The children absolutely love it, so do the parents, and all staff are in it together, and it's just brilliant. You can't ask for a better school. I've only been here 2.5 years and I feel like I've been here a lifetime. I can't imagine ever leaving this school for the staff and for the pupils.
Just as wellbeing is for everyone, it's crucial that for a whole school approach to work, everybody is on board. So historically in schools, we're used to maybe having allocated members of staff who may work on wellbeing, and that might be their role. We may have adults in school that young people go to when there are concerns around their wellbeing or their mental health needs. A whole school approach does this differently. So whilst it's really important that we still have allocated members of staff who are going to be able to lead on these and drive some of these ideas and changes through, we also need an approach that uses everybody's voice. We've heard about the importance of agency today, and something that uses everybody's voice, makes sure that everybody in the community is listened to and that everybody is involved in the creation of your whole school approach to wellbeing, in thinking about those components and what they look like in this school and how we could develop those components to make a kind of more coherent whole school approach to wellbeing here.
I feel like when I was in this school from year 7 to year 10, I could come in the morning and there'd normally be a pastoral on the gate welcoming everybody, and I could have an argument with my mum in the morning. They'd go, all right Rebecca, like, how was your morning? And that just made me feel like, yeah, like I'm not just walking into a dark and gloomy place, someone's actually taking their time to talk to me.
Working at a whole school level is particularly advantageous in terms of we're looking at the sort of the smaller subtle changes that we can make within a whole school environment that don't require massive changes to the sort of the overall sort of systems which currently exist within schools. We're looking at what works well within the schools that we'll be working with, and looking to try and encourage those things and trying to develop some of the things which schools already do very, very well. So for instance, we're talking about the themes of belonging, agency, efficacy, love and safety. Those are all things that schools can provide, but it's about us being able to kind of support schools in recognising the value of those things and being able to perhaps enhance some of those things which they're already doing and recognising their contributions to a whole school approach to emotional well-being.
And they've just worked with me all the way. There's been a friendly, inviting, chatty atmosphere around the school, and as it's progressed on through the years, it's got even better. They've just put us completely at ease, and they've made us realise how wonderful our daughter's life can be going on, and that there's, you know, it is this bittersweet thing about going up to high school, and is it all going to stop? You know, it'll definitely change, because life changes anyway. But right now, at this moment in time, I couldn't be happier. They've reacted and even been ahead of me on some things that I hadn't even thought about, and the ideas that have flowed in order to bring her on and socialise her and make her happy. And she comes home from school most days really happy and can't wait to get to school the next day.
Another thing about the whole school approach, and particularly this idea of feeling supported, is this really powerful idea about being held in mind. So being supported is not necessarily about having people next to you, being close. It can be about just being held in mind and knowing that there are people there thinking about you. People who may not be present, but know that when you go off to your classroom or when you go off to your day in work in school and you're about to have a difficult day, knowing that other people, perhaps in your team or in your peer group, are holding you in mind and thinking about you, can make a profound difference to your experience of challenge or of your day.
I told my catering teacher, Miss Button, that I wasn't very happy in her lessons and that I was very down and that I had to go see the mental health team. She encouraged me every day to come into school and made me feel really good about myself and boosted my confidence up every day. And just seeing Miss Button with a smile on her face herself was really positive for me. Just seeing everyone with a smile on their face is really positive and it's just really nice. So my catering teacher, Miss Button, made me feel really good.
Okay, so thank you, Ian and Charlotte, for running us through the stages of the spiral of inquiry. We hope by now that you've got a bit of a feeling of what it's like to dip your toes in and kind of have a go at exploring that vignette and through a relatively familiar situation that you've probably found yourselves in your schools. We're almost there. We've just got one more thing we would like you to do, and that's a short Mentimeter activity. So it's very similar to what we did last time. So what we'll do now is we're going to ask you in a moment to pause this video for a couple of minutes and to think about these questions.
Okay, so we've got two questions here, which are what's going on for our members of our training community. So we're just asking really, how are you feeling about using spirals? And then our second question is, what are going to be your next steps? So we just suggest, if you can, to pause the video for a moment and have a little bit of a think, maybe write down some notes on what's going on for members of our training community and what are going to be your next steps.
And we'd really like to hear back any responses that you've got from this. So if you wanted to share them, we would love you to write them in the comments section on this YouTube video, so that if you care to share, we would really love to see those. Or you can drop us an email as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So here we can see the responses that we received from our delegates that attended the live training. And I think what I can really see here, Laura, is how positive people felt after having undergone that day of training.
Yeah,
so
they're really positive, aren't they? We've got people saying they feel curious and inspired, they're motivated, they can't wait to get started, they're feeling ready to get going.
I think that's really encouraging, isn't it? That they've sort of taken away this message, and they feel that they actually want to give it a go and take it back to their school communities and start asking those questions that we've been exploring and going through those processes as well. So hopefully, after having attended this recorded version of the training, that you'll be feeling the same as well. And again, obviously put any questions that you or any answers you've got to those questions in our comments section.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then on this slide we can see the results from the Mentimeter of what everyone in the live training said were going to be their next steps. So we had lots of people saying that they might, well, one person said they might need to take a bit of time and reflect on this. Lots of people said they might take it back to their management team, to the rest of their staff. Yeah, got lots of talking about reflection and discussion and sharing with others.
And I think for me that's really encapsulating the whole spirit of the spiral of inquiry, isn't it? There's quite a collaborative theme that's coming through there, that people are feeling that. I think we had a number of school leaders attending the live training, didn't we? So we can see there, and I'm really encouraged to see that people are talking about sharing it with their wider school team and their school communities, to explore the ideas of actually working through this within their schools as well. So I think that's lovely to see. I think that what you were saying there about reflection is really important as well, because it is a very reflective process, isn't it? We're talking about sort of we talk about being curious and asking those questions about what's going on in our school community, and it's also important that we know that we reflect upon, now we know what the spiral encompasses, and what we've talked about the elements of well-being as well, that we have an opportunity now to kind of think as school leaders, as members of school communities, to think about, okay, now I know this, how can I work with this within my school community? So that kind of really flexible approach is really, I think we're seeing that here in terms of what people are talking about in these responses.
Okay, so you've reached the end of this part of the training. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate that you've listened to the recorded version of our training.
Just before you go, if you could spare a moment to put any comments, or if you've got any questions, please do put them in the comments section on the YouTube playlist. It's really helpful for us to know what you thought, and we've already had some lovely comments back on some test versions of this training that we've sent out, so we're really interested in hearing how you've used it, where you've listened to it. I know we've had people taking it out for a walk and listening to it whilst they've been out in the sunshine, so I think whatever works for you really. So yeah, we really value any comments or questions that you've got that can help us.
So lastly, again, thank you so much on behalf of the whole School Approach team for attending the event. We just wanted to ask one final thing. You can probably guess what it is before you leave. We'd so appreciate it if you could complete our post-session questionnaire on DoPoll. The link to this will be in the description, and if you could just click on that, it will take you through to a quick questionnaire. Thank you so much for doing that. We know we ask a lot.
We are the DoPoll team.
So yeah, it would be fab if you could fill that out. It shouldn't take too long. But again, thank you so much for attending, and we hope to hear from you soon and hear about how your spirals are all turning out.
Thank you.